Question 58. Marxism and Gandhism, a comparative study. Introduction. The two ideologies in context. Marxism and Gandhism are two of the most powerful and contrasting ideologies of the modern world. Both arose as responses to exploitation, inequality, and injustice, but they offered entirely different paths to achieve human liberation and social order. Karl Marx, 1818 to 1883, the German philosopher and revolutionary, developed Marxism as a scientific theory of class struggle, seeking to abolish capitalism through revolution and establish a classless, stateless, communist society. Mahatma Gandhi, 1869 to 1948, the Indian thinker and freedom leader, developed Gandhism as a moral, spiritual, and non-violent philosophy, aiming for the transformation of individuals and society through truth, non-violence, and self-rule, Swaraj. While Marxism emphasizes material conditions and economic power, Gandhism emphasizes moral values and spiritual power. Both criticize injustice and oppression, yet their methods, goals, and worldviews differ profoundly. 1. Philosophical foundations. Marxism is grounded in materialism, particularly dialectical materialism. Marx believed that material conditions and economic relations determine social and political life. Human history, according to him, is the history of class struggles driven by economic contradictions. Gandhism, by contrast, rests on spiritual idealism. Gandhi believed that moral and spiritual values, not material conditions, shape human destiny. He held that truth, satya, and non-violence, ahimsa, are the ultimate realities guiding social and political conduct. Thus, Marx's philosophy is scientific and materialist, while Gandhi's is ethical and spiritual. Example. Marx explained poverty through economic exploitation of labor by capital. Gandhi explained it as a moral failure of greed and selfishness. 2. View on human nature. For Marx, man is primarily an economic being, shaped by his social relations of production. His consciousness reflects his material existence, hence, change in economic structure transforms human nature. For Gandhi, man is a spiritual and moral being, endowed with conscience and self-control. His goal is self-realization through moral growth, not material satisfaction. Thus, Marx focused on changing social structures, while Gandhi focused on changing the individual's heart and character. 3. Concept of society and conflict. Marx viewed society as divided into antagonistic classes, the bourgeoisie, owners, and the proletariat, workers. The conflict between them is inevitable and must culminate in revolution, overthrowing the capitalist system. Gandhi, however, rejected the idea of class war. He saw society as an organic whole, where different classes perform complementary functions. Instead of conflict, Gandhi sought cooperation and harmony between labor and capital through trusteeship, the moral use of wealth for public good. Example. Where Marx called for workers to seize factories, Gandhi urged capitalists to hold them in trust for the welfare of laborers. 4. Concept of the state. For Marx, the state is an instrument of class oppression, a tool used by the ruling class to maintain its dominance. In a communist society, once class distinctions disappear, the state itself would wither away. For Gandhi, the state represents coercive power, inherently opposed to individual freedom. He envisioned enlightened anarchy, a decentralized society governed by moral self-discipline rather than by state compulsion. Thus, both were critical of the state, but Marx saw its end as a result of economic equality, while Gandhi saw it as a result of moral self-rule, Swaraj. 5. Means of social change. Marx advocated revolutionary change through violent struggle. Since the ruling class would never surrender power voluntarily, Marx justified class revolution to establish socialism. Gandhi, on the other hand, rejected violence in all forms. He believed violence corrupts both the oppressor and the oppressed. His method of change was nonviolent resistance, satyagraha, appealing to the conscience of the oppressor through truth and moral persuasion. Example: the Russian Revolution, 1917, exemplifies Marx's revolutionary method. The Indian freedom movement under Gandhi's leadership illustrates nonviolent transformation. 6. Attitude toward property and capitalism. Marx demanded abolition of private property, especially in the means of production. He saw property as the root cause of exploitation and inequality. Gandhi did not call for abolition but for moral regulation of property through the principle of trusteeship. He believed that wealth should be held not for personal luxury but for social service. Hence, Marx's approach was confiscatory and collective, while Gandhi's was ethical and voluntary. 7. Economic ideals. Marx's ideal society is communist, where there is collective ownership, classlessness, and production for use rather than profit. Gandhi's economic vision was Sarvodaya, the welfare of all through village self-sufficiency, Gram Swaraj, small-scale production, and simple living. He rejected industrial capitalism and centralized production, advocating decentralized, human-scale economies. Example: Marx admired large-scale industrial production as a stage of historical progress. Gandhi promoted the charkha, spinning wheel, as a symbol of economic self-reliance and dignity of labor. 8. Concept of freedom. For Marx, freedom is economic and social emancipation, liberation from class exploitation and alienation. For Gandhi, freedom is moral and spiritual self-discipline, realized through self-control and non-possession. While Marx's freedom depends on the transformation of material conditions, Gandhi's depends on the transformation of the individual conscience. 9. View of religion and morality. Marx was an atheist and viewed religion as a form of false consciousness, the opium of the people used by ruling classes to justify exploitation. Gandhi, on the other hand, saw religion as the foundation of morality and truth. His politics was deeply spiritual, guided by the ethical principles of all religions. Hence, Marx's vision was materialist and secular, while Gandhi's was spiritual and ethical. 10. End goals of both ideologies. Both sought human liberation, but in different senses. Marx's goal was a classless, stateless, communist society, economic equality achieved through collective ownership. Gandhi's goal was Sarvodaya, upliftment of all through non-violence, moral self-rule, and harmony. Marx's liberation is collective and structural. Gandhi's is personal and moral. 11. Areas of agreement. Despite their differences, Marxism and Gandhism share important points of convergence. I. Critique of exploitation. Both condemned social and economic injustice under capitalism. 2. Concern for the poor. Both stood for the emancipation of the oppressed classes, the workers and peasants. 3. Vision of equality. Both sought a society free from oppression and inequality. 4. Opposition to imperialism. Both opposed colonial exploitation and foreign domination. We, human welfare as goal, both believed that the aim of all social organization should be the well-being of humanity. However, they differed fundamentally in methods and moral orientation. 12 major differences summarized in prose. While Marxism is rooted in scientific materialism and advocates violent revolution to restructure society, Gandhism is rooted in spiritual idealism and advocates non-violent moral transformation. Marx emphasizes class conflict and economic equality. Gandhi emphasizes social harmony and moral equality. For Marx, history is determined by economics. For Gandhi, it is guided by conscience and ethical will. Marx's means are revolutionary, Gandhi's are reformative. Marx's end is a stateless society, Gandhi's end is a self-regulating moral community. 13. Philosophical reflection. Marx's method appeals to reason and material justice, while Gandhi's appeals to conscience and moral truth. Marx transforms the structure of society, Gandhi transforms the soul of society. If Marx symbolizes conflict, Gandhi symbolizes conciliation. If Marx represents power, Gandhi represents love. If Marx demands revolution, Gandhi calls for conversion. In essence, Gandhi moralizes politics, Marx politicizes morality. Summary for quick understanding. Marxism is a scientific materialist revolutionary doctrine aiming to end exploitation through class struggle and communism. Gandhism is a moral, spiritual, and non-violent philosophy aiming to end injustice through self-rule, truth, and love. While both seek human emancipation, Marx trusts force and structure, Gandhi trusts truth and self-discipline. Their contrast represents the conflict between material and moral approaches to social justice. Quick revision notes. Marxism materialist, revolutionary, class conflict, abolition of property, violent means. Gandhism spiritual, moral, class harmony, trusteeship, non-violent means. Marx ends justify means. Gandhi means and ends inseparable. Common ground upliftment of the poor, justice, equality. Key difference Marx transforms structure, Gandhi transforms soul. One-line questions and answers for revision. 1. Who propounded Marxism? Karl Marx. 2. Who propounded Gandhism? Mahatma Gandhi. 3. What is the philosophical basis of Marxism? Dialectical materialism. 4. What is the philosophical basis of Gandhism? Spiritual idealism and moral truth. 5. What is the method of Marxism? Violent revolution. 6. What is the method of Gandhism? Non-violence, ahimsa, and satyagraha. 7. What is Marx's view on property? Abolition of private property. 8. What is Gandhi's view on property? Trusteeship and moral use of wealth. 9. What is the end goal of Marxism? Classless, communist society. 10. What is the end goal of Gandhism? Sarvodaya and moral self-rule, Swaraj. Final connection. Both Marxism and Gandhism arose from a deep concern for human suffering and social injustice, yet they diverged in their means and spirit. Marx's revolution begins from without, by changing institutions and ownership. Gandhi's revolution begins from within, by purifying hearts and motives. Marx sought justice through power, Gandhi sought justice through love. In the final sense, a synthesis of both, Marx's concern for equality and Gandhi's concern for morality, offers the truest path toward a just and humane world. Question 59. Fox and Lion-like elites as given by Wilfredo Pareto. Introduction. Pareto's elite theory in context. The Italian sociologist and economist Wilfredo Pareto, 1848 to 1923, is one of the chief architects of the elite theory, the idea that in every society, power is concentrated in the hands of a small minority, the elite, while the majority, the masses, are governed by them. In his major work, The Mind and Society, 1916, Pareto developed the theory of the circulation of elites, explaining how ruling classes rise, decline, and are replaced over time. Within this larger theory, he made a famous distinction between two psychological types of elites, the lions and the foxes. These two types represent contrasting temperaments and methods of rule. According to Pareto, the balance and alternation between them ensure the stability and vitality of political systems. 1. Meaning of the terms lions and foxes. Pareto used the metaphors lions and foxes to describe two psychological and political styles of leadership found among elites. Lions symbolize strength, conservatism, and force. Foxes symbolize cunning, adaptability, and manipulation. He borrowed these terms from Machiavelli, who in The Prince had said that a ruler must combine the strength of a lion with the cunning of a fox to maintain power. Pareto, however, treated these two qualities as distinct elite types dominating in different historical periods. 2. The lion-like elites. Characteristics. Lions are the traditional, conservative, and forceful rulers. They believe in authority, discipline, moral order, and stability. Their approach is rigid, straightforward, and uncompromising. They rely on coercion, power, and principles to maintain social order. Their leadership is marked by honor, loyalty, and moral integrity, but they often lack flexibility and adaptability. Psychological traits. Courageous and morally upright. Respectful of tradition and hierarchy. Resistant to change or innovation. Depend on force and authority rather than persuasion. Method of rule. Lions rule by strength, law, and coercion, not by compromise or manipulation. They maintain stability through fear and obedience. Examples. Monarchies and military dictatorships represent lion-like rule. Leaders such as Napoleon Bonaparte, Bismarck, or even Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, in his administrative firmness, illustrate the lion-like temperament. The old aristocracy of Europe or the feudal elites of pre-industrial societies are lion-like in nature, maintaining order through loyalty and authority. Advantages. Provide stability and firm government. Uphold traditions and social order. Resist moral and political decay through discipline. Limitations. Intolerant of change and reform. Rigid in outlook, unable to adapt to new challenges. May suppress liberty and innovation, leading to stagnation. 3. The fox-like elites. Characteristics. Foxes are the cunning, shrewd, and opportunistic leaders. They depend on intelligence, diplomacy, and manipulation rather than physical force. They are innovative, flexible, and pragmatic, but often lack moral conviction. They use deception, persuasion, and compromise to maintain power. Their rule is based on strategy, negotiation, and adaptability rather than authority. Psychological traits: clever and resourceful, diplomatic and persuasive, open to change and experimentation, self-serving, calculating, and opportunistic. Method of rule: foxes rule through tact and manipulation. They rely on alliances, propaganda, and public relations rather than coercion. They prefer corruption and diplomacy to brute force and maintain power through intellectual and political maneuvering. Examples: democratic politicians, bureaucrats, and technocrats who manipulate opinion and institutions. Leaders like Franklin D. Roosevelt, Jawaharlal Nehru, or modern populist leaders who rely on negotiation and media tactics reflect the fox-like type. In ancient history, Pericles of Athens or Machiavelli's prince are symbolic foxes. Advantages: skilled in negotiation and diplomacy. Avoid violence through compromise. Limitations: lack of firm principles, prone to corruption. Overuse of deceit undermines public trust. Excessive manipulation weakens state authority. 4. Alternation and circulation of elites. According to Pareto, societies oscillate between periods dominated by lions and periods dominated by foxes. When lion-like elites rule too long, society becomes rigid and repressive, unable to adapt to change. This invites the rise of fox-like elites, who use cunning and flexibility to overthrow or undermine the old order. However, when fox-like elites dominate excessively, society becomes corrupt, unstable, and morally weak, prompting a reaction that restores lion-like authority through revolution or authoritarianism. Thus, political stability depends on the balance between force and cunning, between authority and adaptability. Example 1. France. The rigid, conservative aristocracy, lions, was overthrown by the cunning revolutionary leaders, foxes, in the French Revolution. Later, Napoleon, a lion, restored authority. Example 2. Russia. The Tsarist regime, lions, was replaced by the Bolsheviks, foxes, after 1917. When corruption grew, Stalin, a lion-like ruler, reimposed discipline. Example 3. Modern democracies. Elected politicians and party elites often act like foxes, using propaganda and negotiation, but when crises arise, lion-like military or authoritarian figures emerge to restore order. 5. Political significance of the fox-lion distinction. Pareto's distinction explains how different types of leadership maintain political systems. Lions preserve order and discipline but risk stagnation. Foxes promote innovation and flexibility but risk decay and corruption. Healthy societies maintain a dynamic balance between the two. Excess of one leads to decline and the eventual circulation of elites, ensuring continuity of elite rule. 6. Criticism of Pareto's typology. While Pareto's classification is insightful, critics have raised objections. It assumes cyclical inevitability, denying the role of rational planning or democratic participation. It may justify elitism and authoritarianism, implying that masses can never truly govern. Despite these criticisms, Pareto's analysis remains valuable for understanding patterns of political leadership and change in all societies. 7. Contemporary relevance. Pareto's fox and lion elites remain strikingly relevant in modern politics. During crisis, fox-like elites dominate, politicians skilled in rhetoric, negotiation, and image building. And thus, from corporate leadership to party politics, Pareto's framework continues to explain how different temperaments rule and replace each other. Summary for quick understanding. Wilfredo Pareto classified elites into two psychological and political types: lions, who rule through force, tradition, and moral strength, and foxes, who rule through cunning, manipulation, and diplomacy. Societies alternate between these two types. When lions dominate, rigidity grows; when foxes dominate, corruption spreads. This alternation produces the circulation of elites, the replacement of one ruling class by another, ensuring the continuity of elite rule. Quick revision notes. Thinker: Wilfredo Pareto. Work: The Mind and Society, 1916. Concept: circulation of elites. Types: lions, force, and foxes, cunning. Lions: conservative, rigid, moral, strong. Foxes: diplomatic, adaptable, manipulative. Cycle: lions rigidity, foxes rise, corruption, new lions emerge. Significance: explains political stability and change. Criticism: simplistic, elitist, ignores masses. One-line questions and answers for revision. 1. Who classified elites as lions and foxes? Wilfredo Pareto. 2. What do lions represent? Strength, conservatism, and forceful authority. 3. What do foxes represent? Cunning, adaptability, and manipulation. 4. What is the main difference between them? Lions use power, foxes use persuasion. 5. What happens when lions dominate too long? Society becomes rigid and repressive. 6. What happens when foxes dominate too long? Society becomes corrupt and unstable. 7. What is the process of alternation between them called? Circulation of elites. 8. Who inspired Pareto's analogy of foxes and lions? Niccolò Machiavelli. 9. Which type of elite rules in democracies? Fox-like elites. 10. What ensures political stability according to Pareto? A balance between lions and foxes. Final connection. Pareto's fox and lion typology offers a profound insight into the psychology of power. Every society, he argued, alternates between strength and cunning, order and flexibility, morality and manipulation, yet power always remains in the hands of the elite. The moral lesson of Pareto's analysis is timeless. When societies lose balance, becoming too rigid under lions or too deceitful under foxes, they collapse, only to be rebuilt by the other type. Thus, the health of political life depends on the continuous renewal of leadership, the wise blending of the lion's courage with the fox's intelligence.